Today we're going to address the age-old question of how do you make friends as an adult? And trust me, I have tried. The number one and probably most obvious piece of advice I can give is to be yourself. When I started my master's course, the first day I wore the plainest clothes I had because I figured they made me look the most adult, and I immediately regretted that decision because it just wasn't me. I mean, I liked the clothes, but they're better suited for going out when you have to look a bit more respectable, rather than going to college where you're going to spend all day basically be treated like a child until you have assignments and you have to grow up a bit. Yay. So I started wearing a few t-shirts that better fitted the way I think and act, and they kind of demonstrate what I'm passionate about rather than pretending to be someone else. And I think the older you get, the more important that is. When you're in secondary school, you tend to have to wear a uniform because they don't want people to be in danger of being slagged or bullied over who they actually are. And it's a kind of messed up system, but it does make a bit of sense because teenagers can be rats sometimes. So I can understand the uniforms, but as you grow older, you sort of just need to let your own identity come out a bit, even if that means wearing t-shirts from the same website, which I kind of do. The second bit of advice I can give you is to compromise. This sort of might sound confrontational, but basically you're not going to have the same sort of interests as everyone you meet in your adult life. And if you're going to be friends with someone, you kind of have to learn to give them the space to talk about what they're interested in, and vice versa, because otherwise it's a one-way conversation, or, you know, a video blog, and you don't really become friends with someone, you sort of just have someone to listen to you ramble on. And that's not really good for, you know, face-to-face conversations, and probably even worse whenever you're reading something on Facebook if only one person is doing the talking. My advice would just be to give people a chance to talk about what they're interested in, even if you're not especially interested in that yourself. Closely related to that is to show respect, which we're beginning to sound like this is a classroom again, but basically you have to not insult people. It seems a bit weird to maybe saying that to adults. I have found in my 7.5 years in retail that some adults still act like children, and that's not really much fun to have to deal with. I find it's a lot easier to be friends with someone if their first reaction isn't to call me a dickhead, or if I don't call them a dickhead. It's okay when you're friends with someone to do that, but if you're trying to still make friends, you don't want to do that. So I was in a fortunate position to actually be going into a master's course where we had to work together, but not everyone is in a position of, starting a new school or something like that where they are forced to meet new people. So a good way to do that is to find a hobby that encourages you to talk to people. Sports teams generally are best for that, or at least because there's a lot of them. But if you're not sporty like me, you can have a bit of trouble. So I found drama in college was a great way to meet people, and I went for small roles because I'm not especially good at acting, but it meant that I still got to be involved, and that was the main thing. My first hobby was writing, and then I picked up video blogging, and even though I was quite bad at video blogging and quite isolated as a writer, I found that they helped me meet new people, which kind of goes on to the next point, which is find a group. So Facebook is actually very helpful for this, even though face-to-face groups are probably the best options for you. But if you don't have a club or society in college that you can go to, then finding or setting up a group on Facebook for writers or for YouTubers, it gives you a chance to talk to like-minded people, and even if that's the only thing you have in common, it's something to break the ice, and that's how you get to actually meet new people. And if you keep the other points in mind, where you be yourself, you compromise, let them talk about what you're interested in, and you respect them as a person, then things tend to get a bit easier, and you get to make some friends as an adult. I find that the later you go into your 20s, the more difficult it is. So kind of have to start early and just experiment a bit. And if you have any tips or pointers for other people that I have left out because I've only done 5 tips, leave them in the comments below, and hopefully other people will see them, and I'll probably add a few of them into a blog post if there ends up being a few too many good ones. See you next time. Bye.